Welcome to another powerful and information-packed edition of Russian Politics, a program that consistently delivers short, clear, and brutally honest coverage of the most important, dramatic, and world-shaking events currently unfolding across the globe, bringing you everything you need to know in a format that respects your time and intelligence. Today has proven to be an extremely dark and deeply painful day for Ukrainian aviation. A dramatic and deadly aerial battle resulted in the confirmed destruction of a military helicopter and the tragic loss of 4 brave Ukrainian servicemen who gave their lives while defending their country against relentless Russian aggression. Kyiv has officially and publicly acknowledged this devastating military loss, with senior commanders gathering to pay their final respects to the fallen crew members at a solemn farewell ceremony held in Lviv Oblast, marking one of the most painful aviation tragedies Ukraine has experienced throughout the entire duration of this brutal and ongoing war. The President of Ukraine urgently summoned top military commanders for immediate emergency consultations following the incident, as authorities simultaneously issued an urgent and direct appeal to the civilian population, while intelligence data surfaced, revealing a specific proposed deadline for bringing the devastating and long-running conflict to some form of negotiated conclusion. President Trump is now actively changing his strategic approach to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, shifting toward a policy framework that includes maintaining and extending sanctions against Russia, even as Putin continues to issue tough, uncompromising, and deeply aggressive demands directed at Ukraine and its Western allies in negotiations that many observers describe as deeply one-sided. The deaths of Hungarian soldiers on the front lines in Ukraine have ignited an explosive and emotionally charged political scandal back in Hungary, sending powerful shockwaves through the country's already deeply divided and increasingly tense political landscape just weeks before the critical and highly anticipated national parliamentary elections was scheduled for April 12th. Orban's ruling Fidesz party released a deeply controversial 33-second campaign video created entirely using artificial intelligence technology, which depicted a small and heartbroken little girl crying beside a cold window as she patiently waited for her father, who ultimately and tragically dies on the battlefield at the hands of the enemy. The video's caption read, "Right now, it's just a nightmare. But Brussels is preparing to make it a reality. Fidesz is the safe choice," with international news agencies widely reporting that Orban is deliberately and cynically playing on deep-seated public fears surrounding the themes of war and peace to gain electoral advantage. Orban has repeatedly and forcefully insisted that Ukraine's potential accession to the European Union could drag all EU member states into a direct, catastrophic, and potentially existential military war with Russia, framing the upcoming election as a fundamental choice between peace and the dangerous war, policies allegedly favored by his political opponents. Opposition leader Peter Magyar of the center-right TISA party responded with fury and moral outrage, publicly declaring that Orban had crossed every conceivable boundary of basic human decency and moral responsibility, demanding the immediate removal of the video and calling the use of a grieving child in political propaganda utterly vile and unacceptable. Magyar stated plainly and forcefully that it had become abundantly clear who the true peddler of hatred in Hungary really is, arguing that anyone capable of resorting to such deeply manipulative and morally bankrupt tactics serves not the Hungarian nation but actively works to destroy it from within for personal political gain. Ukraine must legally recognize same-sex marriages as a firm, clear, and non-negotiable prerequisite for joining the European Union, according to a significant and strongly worded statement recently issued by the European Commission in Brussels, which came in direct response to concerns raised by human rights organizations about Ukraine's newly drafted civil code. The human rights organizations criticized the draft civil code for significantly narrowing and restricting the legal rights of same-sex couples, arguing that the document recognizes de facto family unions exclusively for opposite-sex partners, thereby leaving same-sex couples entirely without equal legal standing, protection, or recognition under Ukrainian domestic law. Brussels firmly and clearly reminded Ukraine that all national legislation must fully comply with established EU standards and the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, including the explicit and unambiguous prohibition of any discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity, standards that all EU member states and candidate countries are legally obligated to uphold. The European Commission specifically highlighted Ukraine's existing legal obligation to implement the European Court of Human Rights, ruling in the case of Mamulakin and Markovi, Ukraine, which formally mandates the legal recognition of same-sex couples, and assured that it would closely monitor compliance through regular official dialogue with Ukrainian authorities. In Russia, a fierce and long-running domestic battle over wealth, privileged, and corrupt enrichment among both former and current members of the Russian State Duma has ended in dramatic and very public defeat. With more than 200 properties and businesses, collectively valued at an astonishing 20 billion rubles legally confiscated by court order, the Sochi Central District Court officially and decisively upheld a major anti-corruption lawsuit filed by Russia's Deputy Prosecutor General against former and current State Duma deputies Anatoly Voronovsky and Andrei Doroshenko, as well as Krasnodar Krai Legislative Assembly Deputy Alexander Karpenko, a ruling that sent a clear message about the consequences of corruption. 19 separate enterprises worth approximately 21.7 billion rubles were seized in total, along with 207 individual real estate properties located across various regions of Russia, and an additional 95 million rubles were recovered in cash, representing one of the largest single anti-corruption asset recovery operations in recent Russian legal history. Investigators allege that since 2016, Voronovsky systematically organized a highly sophisticated and extremely profitable scheme of kickbacks and bribery directly tied to the distribution of lucrative state road construction contracts, with access to government procurement carefully controlled through the Kuban Road Builders Union Association and kickback amounts set and enforced centrally. Remarkably, Putin himself appeared to comment on the situation, stating in a court hearing that while a thief must go to jail, as the famous film says, there are important nuances to consider, and that imprisoning individuals for minor economic offenses is not always justified, though he emphasized that punishment must ultimately be inevitable. Poland has declared itself fully ready and prepared to take swift and decisive military action to defend its territory, with Warsaw officially announcing the credible and very real possibility of emergency mining along both its border with Belarus and the strategically sensitive Kaliningrad region. In a dramatic escalation of European security preparations, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk confirmed that anti-personnel mines would be deployed as part of this defensive strategy, and that the entire mining operation could realistically be completed by Polish military forces within just 48 hours if the security situation demands such urgent action, underscoring just how seriously Poland is taking current military threats. This decision marks a full and deeply significant historic return to anti-personnel mine production for the first time since the end of the Cold War, with Warsaw also declining to rule out the possibility of supplying these newly produced weapons directly to Ukraine to help strengthen its defensive capabilities against advancing Russian forces. Poland began its formal withdrawal process from the Ottawa Convention, banning anti-personnel mines back in August of last year, and the mandatory 6-month withdrawal period officially and symbolically expires today, February 20th, meaning Poland is now legally and practically free to resume production and deployment of this class of weaponry. There is virtually no realistic or credible chance that Ukraine and Russia will successfully reach a comprehensive peace agreement capable of ending the ongoing war during the current year, according to a deeply sobering assessment delivered by senior intelligence representatives from 5 separate European countries. In an interview with Reuters news agency, European intelligence officials firmly believe that Moscow has absolutely no genuine or sincere intention of ending the conflict, and is instead strategically exploiting current diplomatic negotiations with the United States purely as a calculated smokescreen designed to facilitate the lifting of international economic sanctions and secure enormously profitable multi-trillion-dollar business arrangements. According to classified intelligence assessments shared with Reuters, Putin's true and entirely unchanged strategic goal remains the complete and permanent overthrow of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, after which Russia fully intends to transform Ukraine into a permanently neutral buffer zone, positioned as a barrier between Russia and the entire Western political and military alliance. Russia is not looking for a peace agreement, it is pursuing its strategic goals, and they have not changed. One senior European intelligence chief stated with striking directness, painting a picture of a Russian leadership that views the current negotiation process purely as a tactical tool serving its long-term imperial ambitions. Europe has now firmly stepped forward as Ukraine's single most important and most generous financial donor, with European military aid to Ukraine increasing by a dramatic 67% in 2025 alone, while financial and humanitarian assistance rose by 59%, even as American support has effectively and dramatically stopped flowing to the war-torn country. Brussels and Berlin are now openly and forcefully stating that since Europe is bearing the overwhelming financial and material burden of supporting Ukraine's defense, it must be granted a formal seat at the negotiation table. A demand that the White House has so far resisted, viewing hardline European leaders as obstacles to a rapid settlement. Meanwhile, the United States recently extended its existing sanctions regime against Russia for an additional full year, with the White House officially and formally stating that Moscow's ongoing military actions continue to be considered a direct and serious threat to American national security, meaning the sanctions will remain firmly in place until at least March 2027. A deeply tragic and emotionally devastating farewell ceremony was held in Lvov Oblast for 4 fallen servicemen from a Ukrainian Army aviation brigade, who lost their lives when their Mi-24 helicopter was directly attacked and destroyed by a Russian Shade attack drone during an active and dangerous combat interception mission. Maxim Kozytsky, chief of the Lvov Special Operations Command, described the loss as absolutely irreparable for Ukrainian aviation, for the entire country, and most painfully for the bereaved families of the 4 fallen crew members, emphasizing that the soldiers remained true to their military oath until the very last moment of their lives. The helicopter was reportedly so catastrophically and completely destroyed by the drone strike that investigators described the aircraft as practically torn to pieces, with the bodies of the crew members found in a condition so badly burned that identifying them became an extraordinarily difficult and deeply heartbreaking task for forensic investigators at the scene. The brother of one of the deceased servicemen stated with raw emotion that he still did not know exactly what kind of Shade drone had struck and destroyed the helicopter, while investigators confirmed they had never previously encountered a case of this specific nature in which a drone had so devastatingly destroyed a military helicopter mid-flight. Meanwhile, Ukraine's own forces launched a successful drone strike on a Russian Black Sea Fleet landing craft station in Crimea, with dramatic photographs of the aftermath circulating widely across Russian online public groups, as Ukrainian armed forces simultaneously announced active and ongoing offensive assault operations in the Alexandrovsk direction in the country's south. A dramatic and wide-ranging joint special operation is currently underway involving the coordinated intelligence and security forces of both Ukraine and Moldova, targeting what authorities describe as a carefully organized and deeply dangerous conspiracy aimed at the assassination of prominent and well-known Ukrainian public figures, allegedly orchestrated by Russian intelligence services. The operation involves officers from Moldova's organized crime squadron, investigators from the National Investigation Inspectorate, and elite operatives from the Folger Special Task Force, all working in close and coordinated cooperation across both countries to dismantle what is described as a sophisticated, Russian-backed network operating covertly throughout the region. The identities and names of the suspected targets are being kept strictly and carefully confidential by authorities to ensure their ongoing safety and the integrity of the investigation. With no formal arrests publicly announced at this stage, though security officials promise to reveal comprehensive details once all legal proceedings have been fully completed, American military forces are actively repositioning and taking up strategic positions across the broader Middle East region, with troop redeployments reportedly nearly complete, as President Donald Trump issued a stark, dramatic, and unmistakable public countdown warning directed squarely and aggressively at the Islamic Republic of Iran over its nuclear weapons program. Trump declared publicly and with great force that if Tehran refuses to agree to a comprehensive nuclear deal on terms fully acceptable to the United States within the next 10 days, then devastating and catastrophic consequences will inevitably follow, warning that bad things await Iran if it continues to defy American demands and ultimatums. The New York Times reported that Iran is currently fully capable of retaliating against any American military action with a massive and coordinated missile strike targeting both Israel and American military bases, spread strategically across the broader region, representing an enormous and genuinely terrifying escalation risk that has put the entire world on edge. American B-2 strategic stealth bombers have been placed on the very highest possible alert status in preparation for potential military operations, while senior national security officials have privately and soberly warned that a potential regime change operation inside Iran is far from guaranteed to succeed and carries enormous unpredictable risks. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk issued an urgent and deeply serious public appeal to all Polish citizens currently present in Iran, calling for their immediate evacuation and warning in stark terms that within just a matter of hours, the possibility of safe departure could become completely and permanently impossible. Due to the rapidly deteriorating situation, the German parliament is confronting a serious and deeply alarming security threat after an employee of a member of parliament from the far right, Alternative for Germany party was permanently and officially barred from entering the Bundestag following the confirmed discovery of extensive and well-documented ties to Russian intelligence networks operating inside Germany. The Berlin Administrative Court issued the landmark decision, which was subsequently upheld by a higher appellate court, after finding that the individual maintained close, regular, deeply suspicious contacts with a Russian citizen who was confirmed to have actively and knowingly collaborated with Russian intelligence services over a significant and extended period of time. The court concluded that these dangerous and compromising connections could have been actively exploited for sophisticated espionage operations conducted directly within the walls of the German parliament, with the specific and alarming intent of jeopardizing Germany's democratic process and fundamentally undermining the constitutional order of the Federal Republic of Germany itself. A remarkable, compassionate, deeply creative social housing initiative has emerged in Berlin, Germany, where a groundbreaking microhousing project is providing a vital and dignified lifeline to some of the city's most vulnerable residents, specifically homeless women, who currently lack access to regular shelter programs and traditional government support systems. Each of the 6 tiny wooden houses measures just 6 square meters in total area, yet manages to include everything a person genuinely needs to feel safe and human: a bed, a small table, a USB outlet for basic connectivity, a fire extinguisher for safety, and infrared heating to provide warmth throughout Berlin's harsh winters. The project was launched in September 2025, specifically for women who are ineligible for regular city shelters due to various personal or bureaucratic circumstances. With admission process not through cold government referrals but through a warm, personal, and genuinely humanizing conversation with compassionate and experienced social workers who treat each woman with full dignity. Project organizers emphasize that the simple act of having one's own personal key is a psychologically transformative and profoundly powerful experience for women emerging from homelessness, as it helps break the devastating and self-reinforcing cycle of street living and restores a deeply needed sense of personal autonomy, safety, and self-worth. Money has the alarming and scientifically well-documented potential to destroy a marriage far more quickly, efficiently, and completely than even infidelity, serious family disputes, or deeply personal disagreements. According to the striking and thought-provoking findings of a comprehensive academic study titled Exploring the Link Between Financial Problems and Divorce, researchers who surveyed more than 4,500 married couples found, through careful and rigorous analysis, that financial disputes represent the single most powerful and statistically significant predictor of eventual divorce, surpassing all other commonly cited relationship problems, including conflicts over children, differences in sexual compatibility, and ongoing tensions with in-laws and extended family members. Study co-author Jeffrey Dew observed that arguments about money very often point to much deeper and more fundamental underlying issues within the relationship, particularly unresolved problems related to personal power dynamics, control, and the level of genuine trust existing between partners, suggesting that financial conflict is frequently a symptom of deeper relational dysfunction. Friends, we extend our deepest and most heartfelt thanks to every single one of you who continues to support this program through your likes, your comments, your reposts, and your consistent and loyal viewership. As your engagement makes this work genuinely meaningful and motivates us to keep delivering quality coverage every single day.